Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
If there's one thing about this movie that at least partially had me intrigued, it was Sam Raimi's involvement. Mostly because his style wouldn't seem to fit in with the typical MCU formula. And I don't have a lot of faith in Disney or Marvel Studios to allow someone like Sam Raimi to execute a singular vision. Everything has to fit with everything else in the MCU.
Oh, you're right. And when you're right, you're right. And you're always right.
And it typically results in a lot of those films feeling very uniform and very familiar. So my initial thoughts were, will Sam Raimi be allowed to elevate the material? Like I know that he can. I just watched the original Spider-Man right before watching this. And the reason that movie worked so well and still does is because of Sam Raimi. He brought Spider-Man to life using his unique visual style. And by using his dark campy charm that he perfected in the Evil Dead franchise.
Groovy.
He also managed to add a certain level of heart to that film that made you actually give a shit about Peter Parker and his journey. I've always said this, but Sam Raimi has such a distinctive style of his own that you can always tell when you're watching one of his films. So going into Multiverse of Madness, I was looking for all of these things. And I wanted to figure out that if I didn't know that Sam Raimi was directing this movie, could I tell that Sam Raimi was directing this movie?
That makes sense.
And that is how I would know if he was left alone to tell a complete story. And I'm here to tell you, in my opinion, that there is no doubt in my mind that this movie is mostly the result of Marvel Studios meddling in the creative process. So much so that most of this movie actually feels like your typical MCU movie to me. All I saw leading up to this in the early reactions was how different this was, and how this is the first horror movie in the MCU.
No shit.
And how it looks and feels like a Sam Raimi film. And now I believe that that is just something that the shills want you to believe. There are a handful of moments early in this film that do feel like it has Sam Raimi DNA, and one pretty big moment towards the end of the film that is undoubtedly him. And those were the better parts of the movie, unsurprisingly. But everything in between felt very familiar, felt very MCU paint by numbers. There was a rumor floating around that Kevin Feige made Sam Raimi reshoot a good portion of this film. Now I don't know if that's true, I don't have sources, but based on what I saw today, I can believe that.
Why do these things always happen to me?
It was almost as if you could see the clashing of tones and visions from scene to scene. Like it was stitched together like a cinematic Frankenstein's monster. It wasn't really sure if it wanted to be a superhero movie, a horror movie, a love story, or a coming-of-age tale. Now it could be all of those things, but it's up to a competent director to make all of that work in one film. And Sam Raimi is capable of doing that, and that's why I know that this movie is mostly the work of Marvel Studios and not Raimi himself.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
A lot of the typical pitfalls of MCU movies are present here. The CGI is underwhelming at times and overused. There's one scene where America Chavez, who we'll talk about more in a moment, is running away from this giant CGI creature. And you can quite literally see the outline around her. It's anything but seamless, much like most of the elements of this movie, unsurprisingly.
What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie?
Yes, this is Doctor Strange's movie in name, but it feels much more like a Wanda or America Chavez story than anything. I predicted a bait and switch for this film. While it wasn't exactly what I thought it would be, it definitely did feel like there was more emphasis on Wanda and America Chavez's character than there was on Doctor Strange's. No, it's not a redemption story for Wanda, but they do go to great lengths to try to get you to at least sympathize with her, or they try to push the blame for her villainous actions off on the mystical Darkhold plot armor excuse.
But you one crazy ass bitch!
Either way, this felt more like the season finale of WandaVision than anything. And of course, her whole purpose in this movie is that she is willing to do anything to get to a universe where she could be happy again, where she could be with her children. Her children that never really existed in this universe, by the way. And she will go to great lengths, even if that means dwarfing and completely destroying characters that some people might be excited to see.
Anybody care about what I want?
I do.
Shut up. Get out.
Yes, like most Marvel movies, there are cameos here, and like most Marvel movies, these cameos really don't amount to nothing, even less so actually in this movie. They're pretty much just there for nostalgia bait and cinematic dick teases. America Chavez is of course a huge part of this movie, and I don't know much about her character from the comics, but based on what I saw here, she seems pretty boring. There's nothing really noteworthy or distinctive about her character to speak of. She looks normal, she dresses normal, she's pretty much your stereotypical teenager, and she is very clearly included in this movie as part of the new diversity initiative. Her only real purpose is that her powers allow her to travel from universe to universe, and that power is coveted by Wanda for very selfish reasons. It kind of reminded me of when Magneto needed Rogue's very specific power in the ending of the first X-Men movie. It's kind of a similar idea they're going with here. And it should be noted that after the Raimi-esque false finish that involved Doctor Strange heavily, the decidedly more Marvel Studios actual finish featured America Chavez taking center stage. Maybe the bait and switch was right all along, I just had the wrong character, I guess. Yes, Queen! All of this was done in an obvious attempt for Marvel to get people interested in this character that nobody really cares about. And if you're surprised that I haven't mentioned Doctor Strange all that much in this review, well, that's because he was kinda just there. The only time we really get to see him do anything is when we see the alternate universe versions of his character. And by the way, the multiverse concept felt kind of underwhelming and underutilized in this film. It was like they were scared to go all in on the idea.
Come on. Do it! Do it!
We see flashes of other cool universes, but that's about it. The alternate universe we spend the most time in is pretty visually similar to the one that we live in. One positive thing I can say is that the typical MCU cringe humor is kind of scaled back. Outside of America Chavez's early joke about Spider-Man shooting web out of his ass, because you know they have to at least get one in, I guess.
Had you ever heard of the healing power of laughter?
Overall, I was mostly disinterested in anything that happened in this movie. It felt like a bunch of different ideas and characters just kind of thrown together randomly. It's kind of your typical modern MCU flair with a bit more diversity and not enough Sam Raimi. It's a shame because I think this story had a lot of potential in a guy like Sam Raimi's hands. But instead, in the end, everything just pretty much fell flat. That's why I'm going to give Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness the Careless Sam Gerard.
I don't care!
So have you seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? If you have, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.